How's everybody doing? I'm Tim McEnery. How was your lunch? Pretty good, right? Is it outside? Nice and hot. Well, I'm thrilled to be here with you today, coming in from Chicago, me and my wild man partner in crime, Rob. How many people have been to Cooper Sock before? All right, great. Anybody in the wine club by chance? Yes, of course, yes. You're my favorite. My favorite. Um, Well, today what I wanted to talk to you about is something that's very near and dear to my heart, which is enriching people's lives. And the reason it's so important probably goes back to the early days in my personal life that has now evolved into what I would call enriching people's lives on steroids through the vehicle, which is Cooper's Hawk. And so before we talk a little bit about Cooper's Hawk, and for those of you that haven't been there, and even for those of you that have been there before, we can maybe explain a little bit behind the scenes and how we do what we do and why we do what we do at Cooper Sock. We've been blessed to have an enormous amount of success over the years, celebrating our 20-year anniversary this year. And for anyone who's either started and or been involved in a company for a meaningful period of time, you know that there's no straight line road to success, even though it looks like an overnight success. But it was far from an overnight success with a lot of trials and tribulations along the way. And so my goal today in spreading what we think is the good word about enriching people's lives and why we believe that's so important and how you can maybe take that into your business and bring it to what I believe is the next level of community in the service industry, which we'll talk more about, is to not only excite you about the idea, but teach you the mechanics behind how to do it. Because everything that happens at Cooper's Hawk, I believe, when the customers and wine club members come in, when our team members are part of our community, it seems very natural and like it all just kind of happens organically. And that's for sure not the case. It is on purpose, it is by design, and it is very intentional. And so I thought I'd share with you some of the secrets to the sauce and how we do it. So before we get into it, just a little story about myself. I grew up in the restaurant industry. I was probably like many people in this room and many people in the industry, washing dishes when I was 11, 12 years old. And I just immediately fell in love with the industry. And what I mostly fell in love with for myself was all of the absolutely insane and crazy people that we get to work with every day. And fast forward now 35 years later, that part hasn't changed a bit. The people only get a little bit crazier. And what's probably the best part of my job and my career is ultimately I get to decide who I get to work with every day. And if I'm ever having a hard time at work or not enjoying going to work, there's only one person to blame for that, which is myself. So the last point before we kind of move into it, when I talk about enriching people's lives, where that comes from, is if you go back to the 80s and the 90s, and some of you maybe remember Tom Peters and In Search of Excellence, and so many of these books around service excellence, how to be really great at providing great service. And then we fast forward in what Danny Meyer did with the concept of hospitality and brought what took basically service to an entirely new level and treating people like guests in your home, no matter what industry you were in. Industries like computers, IBM, the car industries were all following and learning from the work that Danny did, and it was truly exponential beyond the hospitality space and how he thought about the business. And so we at Cooper Sock and myself, we think that the next evolution now is by really trying to change and improve people's lives through the sales and businesses that we run and what we do. And we think that we've cracked the code on that in our version at Cooper Sock. So a little bit about Cooper Sock for those of you that haven't been there or have and would like to know a little bit more. So it's the combination of a winery and restaurant. All of our wines are produced for us. We don't actually own the winery anymore. We decided to divest it for a lot of legal reasons, but it's kind of like a sister company at this point. And so the winery produces all of these exceptional wines. So we serve only our wines, but we also have a full bar and everything else that a full service modern casual dining experience would have. Beautiful 250 to 300 seat restaurants. We've got about 70 restaurants to date. Napa style tasting room. So you come in, you can do a wine tasting before you have your dinner. You can do one after, have a glass of wine, spend time with friends. Of course, our wine club is probably the secret sauce of our model outside of the 10,000 wonderful people that we work with every day. We'll talk a lot about the wine club today. Celebrity chef dinners and winemaker dinners, and we have a retail program. Wine club trips were probably a big evolution of what we've done. We're still a very scratch kitchen today. And at the end of the day, we focus on our knitting. We are operators at heart. And the only reason that everything we do works is because we focus on great food. We focus on great service. I always tell the story. I was at, you're probably familiar with the ICR conference, I think, or any of these financial conferences that we speak at from time to time. And I remember giving my presentation and coming off the stage, and somebody came up to me. They're like, "That's really great, that you guys are having all this success, but obviously, you guys have that wine club, so that's where all that success comes from." And I said, "Well, for sure, it's a part of it, but there wouldn't be almost 800,000 members in the wine club if the food sucked, if the wine wasn't any good, if the service was lousy, and we didn't provide compelling value." And when you serve, I forgot how many 20 million guests will serve this year or something like that. That's like really hard. Those are the parts that are really hard. So that's a little bit about Cooper's Hawk, which is exciting. And then this slide, which if it was up to me, I wouldn't put this slide in here, but the people that make the PowerPoints put it in here just to say how great we are. But here's all these great things that you can marinate on, and we're very proud of ourselves, and way to go, Tim and team, for accomplishing all this great stuff. Before we move on to the mechanics and what the vision and values are at Cooper's Hawk and what they really mean to us, I wanted to share two stories as to how we came to this evolution, because I think everything, like the idea for Cooper's Hawk, everything has to start with a moment in time where you have these epiphanies and ideas, and they come from everywhere. Whether you're reading a book, you're on a trip, you're spending time with friends. And the ideas for creating community and enriching people's lives came to us in two fashions. The first was I met this woman named Debbie Benedetti. She's since passed away about a year ago, but she was an executive business coach, cultural guru leader. She would come into organizations and help you determine, what your values really were, what was working in the company, what wasn't. Someone who was a founder trying to, figure out how do you evolve into the CEO of what will soon be $1 billion company. She was an amazing woman, amazing person. And so I met her at a conference like this, and she said, "Well, tell me about your culture." And I said, "Well, it's great. It's great. Everybody's working hard. We're having a lot of fun, and it's all great." And she's like, "Tim, that's not a culture. That's like a fraternity." And I said, "Okay, well, that's probably kind of fair, because it probably felt like a fraternity for a whole bunch of years there." And she said, "Why don't you let me come into your organization for a couple of days, and I'll sit with you and your team, and we're going to determine what are the behaviors or values that are enabling you to have the success that you're having today, and then we'll take next steps from there." So it wasn't an exercise on what values do we strive to have, because that's a false charge, right? It's too late if it's not already. It has to be organic in your business. And so she came in, and for a couple of days, we all sat in the room, about 14 of us, and we whiteboarded all of the different mantras and things that really were compelling to us. And we came away with these 4 values, which you'll see in a moment, but I'll read them to you right now, which is: we care about people, we're committed to being the best, we're different, and we have fun and celebrate. And so everything we do in the organization involves these 4 values. No one in the company works at the company that doesn't have all 4 of those values, or if they don't have all 4 of those values, they won't be there for long, because we just haven't figured it out yet. It is organic and intuitive in everything that we do. So we'll come back to that in the next slide as to what that really means and how we work it into every aspect of what we do at Cooper's Hawk. But the second story, which was really important, so now we have these values, and we're starting to learn what to do with them. And I, being in the wine space, I really wanted to be great at learning about wine. I was the original winemaker at Cooper's Hawk. I did that because I wanted to really master my understanding about wine. I knew restaurants really well, and I wanted to have an equal knowledge of wine and winemaking and such. So I started to study. And I realized early on that the only way I was going to be able to be really great at wine was you have to go to these places. You got to go to Napa, you have to go to Tuscany, and you have to really just see it and feel it and talk to the people. And so I had this conflict, though. We had this very busy restaurant. I was newly married. We had a newborn, less than a 1-year-old. And how was I going to go home and ask my wife? And by the way, I'd like to, go to Napa for a week to learn about wine, and that wasn't going to work. So I thought about it for a little while, and I said, what we could do is we could do wine club trips. And of course, being the founder of Cooper's Hawk, I would have to host the trips and take these people on these trips around the world and such. So amazingly, that worked, and I got to go and do it. So we took our first 34 people to Napa Valley as hosting, a wine expert trip in Napa Valley. And I was the wine expert. Now, I'd only been to Napa Valley for like 8 hours one time, and I think we were at Sutter home drinking white Zinfandel out of a Gatorade bottle or something. So I was a little bit, when they say fake it till you make it, this was like the real textbook example of fake it till you make it. But we went there, and what happened when we were there was that all of these folks, it was such a wide, diverse group of people, but how they started to really interact with each other and become friends and friendly. And so you'd have the younger couple that really enjoyed spending time with the older couple because the older couple had all these great stories and wisdom. And the older couple loved spending time with the younger couple because they had a lot of energy and they were fun to be around. And all these different interactions started to take place. So we're 19 years later from that trip, so many of those folks still get together once a year and spend time together because of the relationships that were formed. And so that was the huge light bulb that went off for me. And I came back from that trip and said to the team, this is what Cooper's Hawk was meant to do. It was meant to bring like-minded people together, create friendships and lifelong bonds, not just between wine club members, but between our team members and our managers and our guests and vice versa, our team members with each other and with our management teams, and just really creating these communities, a community of great team members, of wine club members, and then also our vendor and supplier partners as well. And that's what we did, and that's what we do. And so our vision for Cooper's Hawk is we create community, and we do that by enriching people's lives. Our mission for Cooper's Hawk is to make these wonderfully, ordinarily unattainable experiences attainable. So Napa Valley, if you're not a wine nut, Napa Valley is intimidating. If you're going to go there, where do you go? It reminds me, it's like, okay, we want to watch a show tonight, and so you go to Netflix and Prime and Apple TV, and you spend more time figuring out what you're going to watch than just watching whatever damn show you're going to watch. And same thing with Napa. You get like paralysis just by thinking, how am I going to spend these 5 days really well? And it's a lot of money and such. So we brought Napa Valley to the neighborhoods where people are. Piccolo Buco, our second concept that we brought from Rome, Italy, the #2 rated pizza in all of Italy. We brought that to Chicago, and now we're going to start rolling that out. I say across the country, but we're going to go from 1 to 2 first. But that's the idea there, is where it's only available in Rome, so we're going to bring it to all the local neighborhoods. I think it's the best pizza in America. It's absolutely outrageously delicious. And the purpose of what we do is to democratize the good life. So being in the wine club is $21 a month for a single bottle membership. And by being in the wine club, you have access to all of these things, the celebrity chef dinners, access to the trips, access to this newly released bottle of wine every month that actually is included with your membership. And so it's like being a member of a private country club and such. That's just wildly attainable at $21 a month. And we do all of this through the values. So the values that I mentioned, if you're sitting in an interview, we're asking you questions solely around these 4 values. How do we determine if you care about people? How do we determine if you're driven? How do we determine if you're able to tolerate the wildly different ways that we do things at Cooper's Hawk than they do at other restaurant companies? And most importantly, do you like to have fun and celebrate? And you have to have all 4. We've all worked with people that just have number 4, and that's a problem. We've all worked with people that don't have number 1 but have a lot of number 2, right? People that are very, very, how many people have worked with somebody, they're so driven, but they've got blinders on and they'll steamroll over anyone to get ahead? That doesn't work. That doesn't last a minute at Cooper's Hawk. And what's so amazing today, and Rob, I think, could attest to this, is that when we do get it wrong, and we, of course, do get it wrong, the system just ejects these people. They're not waiting around for me or one of the senior managers in the company to handle it. The system just handles it. you feel wildly uncomfortable at Cooper's Hawk if you don't have these 4 values, because it just wouldn't make sense what we're doing every day if you don't believe in these 4 values. And then the communities we serve our team members, our wine club members, and our supplier and vendor partners. And that's how we think about it, and that's how we think about it in that order. I know everyone talks about, their community of team members and putting their employees first, but I know that we truly and really, really, really do. I believe that just about all, I shouldn't say every bit of all, but almost all of the innovation and all the improvements of the company come from within. So when you have 10,000 team members trying to get all of the information of how we can make Cooper's Hawk a better place to work every day, a more efficient business, more profitable business, more fun for our guests and such. So once a month, we'll bring in 15 team members from all the different work groups. We'll bring in, I think we had 15 hosts and bussers and food runners last week. Next week, we'll have 15 servers. And we just sit around the table for an hour and a half and talk about how can we improve their time at Cooper's Hawk, how can we improve everything in the business. And they have all the answers. I mean, you got to take a couple Tylenol to get ready for that meeting, because it can get intense. But by talking to the team members instead of talking to the guests, it's my belief that they've waited on and spent time with thousands and thousands of guests, so they kind of automatically filter it down for you, which is basically, Tim, here's the 3 things that you need to know that the guests are screaming about or that we're asking for, and they just feel very comfortable telling me. We go to the restaurant. I was just stopped at our Palm Beach Gardens restaurant on the way here, and I talked to the managers, and hey, how is everything going? And what do you think the manager says? Everything's great, really great. Thank you, Tim, it's amazing. And you take 3 steps over and you talk to the server. How's it going? Like, what's going on? Well, all right, the 3 POSs haven't worked in about a month. And if somebody doesn't fix that toilet in the employee restroom, like, I'm gonna kill somebody. It's like, okay, that's what, you just have to know who to ask, and those are all fake stories, by the way. But that's the real example, though, right? You can imagine that's what we hear about every day. And what the point of this slide, if you take anything away from this part of our presentation here, is that the power of the entire organization having clarity in what we're doing here. And that's, I think, what's so important. If you read Patrick Lencioni's books, it's the Death by Meeting guy, and I forgot the other ones already. But he took all of his books and he kind of summed it up in this book called The Advantage. And he's like, if you don't read any of my books, read this one book. And if you just read this one book, read the table of contents. And it's basically build a team, build a cohesive leadership team. Okay, that makes sense. And then number 2 is create clarity. And number 3 was reinforce clarity. And number 4 was check one more time to make sure that everybody on the senior team of this organization knows what we're doing here. And I think even myself, although I think we mostly get it right, there's a lot of moving parts every day and a lot going on. That power of clarity, and for us as leaders to constantly be reinforcing it is incredibly powerful. So a little bit about the mechanics and how we do it. This is a little bit what we call the flywheel of our kind of customer cycle and such. So when someone comes to a Cooper's Hawk that has never been to Cooper's Hawk before, they're coming for a dining experience. They don't know about the retail. They don't know about the tasting room. They're going to have to learn that and find all that out. And we love that. About 40-some% of our guests on any given shift or any given day are wine club members, and the rest are non-wine club members. And it's a perfect mix. So we have a steady state of business, steady state of customers, wine club members coming in. But then we also have a whole new group of folks that we're just introducing to Cooper's Hawk that we can invite to the wine club. So we do everything we can to deliver a great experience. And then through trial and through traffic, we try to convert folks into the wine club. By growing our restaurant units, of course, that's our biggest opportunity to grow wine club membership, as you would imagine. As the membership grows, it's equally important that we constantly keep it interesting. We've got a wonderful board of directors and our great investment partners. And sometimes it's a little hard for that entire body of people to understand why, with the success that we're having, we continue to push the level of innovation that we push. And I think it's because if we don't, then we could end up like everybody else ends up. You could get stagnant, and we definitely have never needed to be bleeding edge, but we wanted to be at least pioneering. And so you'll see in the next slide coming up some of the pioneering things that we're doing. So this 20th year, we're celebrating with an inaugural relationship with Virgin Voyages. And so we had the opportunity to meet these folks. We had a great first meeting, and the idea was that could wine club members travel through Virgin Voyages and maybe get a discount, maybe they get some points on their Cooper's Hawk card, maybe there's a bottle of Cooper's Hawk wine on their pillows, some special programming while they're on the cruise. And I said to the gang on the phone, I said, how many people fit on the boat? And so first I got corrected. You don't call it a boat, it's a ship. And it sounds so much fancier, doesn't it, when you say that? And they said, well, there's about 1,500 rooms on the ship, or about 2,400 people will fit on the ship. I said 2,400 people, thinking 20th anniversary, okay. We would like to charter a ship just to inaugurate this kind of relationship together for our wine club. So we're going to charter a ship. And they're like, oh, Tim, that's a really great idea. A lot of people have that idea as well. Why don't we start like crawl, walk, run, and you see what the appetite for this thing is? And I said, yeah, no, thank you, but we would like to charter a ship. And so we started moving down that path, and our equity partners got involved because it scared the shit out of them. And rightfully so, I guess. If you're me, I saw the whole thing to fruition. I already know like where I'm going to be the Saturday night of the cruise, what exactly I'm going to be doing. And so they did all of this modeling in a good way around what happens if we only sell out 75% of the ship. How are we going to fill in the gap so that we're not on the hook for $1 million or something? And so while all this modeling is going on, the next phase was, well, let's do what they do in the cruise part of it, which is let's discount early. Let's get some real momentum to get the ship booked, and then we've got time afterwards to sell out at full price. And I said, no, we're going to sell it at full price. The value that we're adding is that we're bringing some celebrity folks, special programming, and this is going to be an entire ship full of wine club members. They all are like-minded. The relationships and the experiences that are going to be had on this boat will be life-changing for people, in my opinion. And so finally, through my persuasion, we did it in that fashion, and the cruise sold out in 5 weeks. It was the fastest cruise they'd ever sold out. Normally, it takes 6 months to sell out one of the cruise ships. And so it was just not a bragging statement, but just a testimony to the power of the wine club. And it's the power of all of these folks. These folks are going on this cruise because they all want to hang out with each other. They love spending time with each other. And they recognize that the relationships that they've made, and the emails, and again, Rob's heard these stories over the years. We meet folks that are a part of the wine club, and they come up to us and just tell us these stories about how Cooper's Hawk has saved their marriage, how it's introduced them to great friends, relationships that have been going on for years. Some of my favorites were, I got a long email from this woman. She said, I'm really bummed. I'm moving to Arizona, and I don't have any friends in Arizona, so I'm losing. There's no Cooper's Hawks there, so I'm going to be losing kind of my relationships that I have here in the Chicagoland area. So as she was moving, she found out that we were going to open up our first restaurant in Scottsdale, and she said, like with just like this total tear-jerking email, she's like, I feel really good about moving to Arizona now because I have faith that I'm gonna have friends there now, and that was really special. And we were at one of our events recently, Emily Wines. So our master sommelier, I think many of you have probably heard of the Master Somm program. Emily Wines is one of the heads of it, and that is her real last name is Wines. So she's meant to be doing what she's doing. So we were at her event, and all of these folks want to come and take pictures of us and all these things. It's a really surreal experience. And this woman came up. She's like, I had to meet you. She's like, I wanted you to know that during COVID, my husband and I were getting a divorce, and the wine club saved our marriage. And I wanted to thank you. The wine club saved our marriage. I said, how did the wine club save our marriage? Your marriage. And she said, well, it gave us a reason to get out of the house once a month to go pick up our wine, forced us to spend time together. We reconnected and realized that our relationship was worth saving. And I said, that is amazing. As I'm like shedding this little tear, I was so excited to hear this story. I said, well, where is your husband? I said, I have to meet this guy. She's like, He's that asshole in the corner over there on his cell phone. I'm like, got it. All right. Well, we'll get over there eventually. But well, maybe, I think it was good that we saved their marriage. Hopefully it was good. So at the end of the day, as we're wrapping up, the point of this slide here is yes about the cruise, yes about all these wonderful experiences, but the reason that what we do at Cooper's Hawk works is because everything that we do is authentic, and everything that we do is with the intent of connection. We encourage all of our team members to have great relationships with our guests, to have great relationships with each other, and to really form and make these connections, because it's these connections that create community that I believe ultimately enrich people's lives. And in closing, you know, what I was in celebrating our 20th year anniversary, you know, this was a good idea. I went to a winery on a date in Illinois, and we were going to dinner afterwards. And I thought, you know, it'd be really cool if they had a restaurant here with a winery. Yeah, that's a pretty good idea. And I had no money. I had no idea how in the world to do it, but I knew how to run restaurants. So through sheer hard work and willpower and total lack of having any idea how hard this fucking thing was going to be. But that's the opening of our first restaurant on the top left, making wine on the bottom left. That session with Debbie is the bottom right, so that's us discovering the vision and values. That's the front door of our bomber office back in the day, all the way to, you know, here we are today at 70 restaurants. On our way, we'll open another 8 restaurants this year, making wine with some of the greatest people in the world, and just having a ball doing it. So thanks for having me, and if I can ever be supportive, reach out anytime.